Ladies and gentlemen, I've got a question for you. Have you ever beaten Magnus Carlsen in a game of chess? Neither have I. However, you are better than me as a chess player because I have actually lost to him. You see, you're undefeated against Magnus. I'm 0-1. This video is about the Pro Chess League matchup that happened a couple of days ago between the Canada team and the Indian team, and it features a victory over Magnus Carlsen for the first time in a chess player's career, something that all of you would know something about. I'm going to take you through the story of the match. Give me about 20-25 minutes of your time, and there is an insane plot twist at the end of this video that you definitely do not see coming, all right? So Canada, the team that Magnus is on, was playing against India, and Magnus was doing his thing, all right? He sat down to play against Vaishali Ramesh Babu. Board 1 plays board 4, right? There's four players, so 1 plays 4, and then it sort of rotates. And early on, Magnus played a relatively ambitious opening, and Vaishali responded very aggressively with this move d4. The point is that White is giving up a pawn, but the idea is that after an exchange occurs, you're going to attack the center with the move c3. And she got a great position early. She was really putting a lot of pressure on Magnus with a5, pressure here, various attacking possibilities, the queen and bishop, maybe f4 in the future. Position is very, very nice. And it looks like, you know, Vaishali's got a kind of very promising thing going on here. Pawn takes, knight d2, and life is good. The problem is this is a very, very tricky position, and Magnus quickly played b5, which is intending to deflect the bishop over here into the line of sight of the rook, and also queen e5, which is a fork and a threat of checkmate. Queen e5, there is queen g3 to defend and then come through, but it's better to avoid such things. Bishop d3, and slowly but surely, Magnus took over the game. Look at this knight. It's defended from far away. The rook is trapped. Magnus picks up on f1 and is up in exchange. And let me tell you something right now. Being up in exchange is good. Being up in exchange when your name is Magnus Carlsen and you are also up 4 minutes on the clock and your opponent has 50 seconds. Yeah. Life is good. So he comes in, hits this, simplifying, very nice, up material, hits the rook, trades the bishops, gets in with his rooks, and it's bad news for Vaishali, as Magnus is just trading down all of the material, picking up pawns left and right, and a very nice dagger at the end to fork the pieces, and rook takes d2. Now, in this position, Vaishali resigned. Okay, but like, why are we celebrating Magnus beating somebody he has a 400-point rating advantage against, right? Well, the point is that Magnus was in good form. Magnus was crushing early on in this match. He won the first game with absolutely no hiccups. In the very next game, he was playing against their board 3, India's board 3, very, very strong international master, and Magnus played a very solid opening, just developed his pieces. Now, the very small imbalance here is that White has traded the b pawn they have traded b pawns, but what that has done is it's opened up the b file, and also Magnus has a little bit more claim to the center. And the thing is, in chess, there are 3 sides of the board. There is the center, right? There is the queen side and the king side. If you can win the battle out of 2 of 3, it's good. If you can win the battle out of 3 of 3, you win the game. So what does Magnus do? Plays rook b1 and plays d4, and black is already nearly completely lost. At least from the standpoint of like playing against Magnus. What do I mean by that? Well, the thing is, if black takes on d4, White just gets massive center, potential advancement, open file, queen can come out, like everything in White's position is active. These pieces are purely cosmetic. They serve absolutely no purpose. They have no way to come forward whatsoever without drastically weakening the position or creating targets. Like even this move is already plus 3.5, right? The most natural move, and it can't even be taken, right? Like, so bishop e7, and Magnus does this, and just, I mean, truly has like a fantastic position. Now, what is the plan here? By the way, he hasn't even spent a minute. He has 9 minutes on the clock. He hasn't even spent a minute to get a completely winning position against like a 2,500 rated international master. This is his chess.com rapid rating, but his over the board rating is over 2,500. So he's like, you know, top 8, top 500 player in the world. And Magnus just no problem. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, rookie won. So what is Magnus gonna do? He's gonna transfer this knight this way. He's gonna pressure this. He's going to pressure the b file. He'll bring his queen out, hitting this and this, and he will make it look completely effortless. Bishop f4, knight d2, knight a4, His opponent tries to trade knights. We have a big trade. Magnus not afraid, hits the queen. Queen out. And this is just the purest of forks. And notice how this is also under pressure. Can we just take a moment here and acknowledge the absolute uselessness of these three pieces? I'm not insulting Magnus's opponent. I'm just helping you understand like how Magnus makes people look and how he makes his opponent. This knight has absolutely no role in the game. This bishop is staring at nothingness. It has absolutely zero participation value in this game. Meanwhile, this bishop is staring at a brick wall. This queen is tied to a horrible pawn, and this rook is also not doing anything. I mean, literally all of his opponent's pieces are useless. Like, it's like incredible. So he takes the pawn, he takes the file, he gets in with his knight, he welcomes in a trade, and he just starts pushing his pawn. And it's just black literally cannot do anything. He's barricaded here by his own pawns. He's barricaded here by his opponent's pawns. His rook is staring at the pawn. Again, his queen can come here, but the king just goes to h2. Like, he completely and utterly paralyzed his opponent and got it to a situation where you literally cannot stop mate. You can only stop mate by losing all of your material on b7, and his opponent just resigned. No, I mean, Magnus was just in buzzsaw mode. I mean, he was just demolishing, 2 for 2. And while this was happening, I told you I'm going to take you through the story of the match. While this is happening, something completely ridiculous is happening in a totally separate side of the match. While this is happening, Mr. Attack to Mate You, that's not his legal name on his passport, he's not like the McLovin of chess, is playing against, obviously, Raunak Sadhwani, a very strong Indian player. This is Razvan Preotu, and Razvan Preotu has a 2470 FIDE rating, so he got the Grandmaster title, slid below 2500 just a little bit. I believe he's in college now, probably, doing what college kids do, play Hearthstone all day or something. I don't know. He's in college, all right? He got the Grandmaster title. Like, life is good. He doesn't need to stress about chess a whole. But, yo, Razvan Preotu, as the board 3 for Canada, sits down in the first game and just has an excellent position against Raunak Sadhwani, who's 16, 17 years old. Well, 17, I guess, because 2005, 17, 18. And he just, very slowly, starts completely putting apart black's position. The knight hits the rook. Now, white is spoiled. White can take this and this and this. And he just takes this to hit the queen, takes the rook, and he's just up a piece. He's up a piece. He's up 2 minutes. And his opponent plays knight f3, which is a nice little trick to win the rook. But folks, 2 bishops beat a rook. They just do. It's 2 pieces. And not to mention, you also have passed pawns. So you're just going to push, and the king is safe. So queen d6, and there go the pawns. White is completely winning. The king is blocked by the bishops, and the pawn is just going to go, and queen. Game is over. Now, this might not shock you. You might be sitting there going, I don't understand. All right, where's the beating Magnus Carlsen part? What am I even watching? Well, what you're watching is the fact that in the early stages of this match, Canada was destroying India. Canada's board 3 beat India's board 2, and then, I think you know where this is going. Board 1 for India, Vidit Gujarati, one of the top 20 players in the world. Board 1 for India. India's equivalent Magnus Carlsen, right? Magnus Carlsen is board 1 for Canada. He's their board 1. Vidit against Mr. Razvan Preotu gets a good position from the opening. Equal position. Life is good. It's, but starts to take over the game, right? Starts to do what 2700s do. Look at this. Knight getting in. Beautiful bishop. Wouldn't it be nice to teleport the queen here and deliver a mate somehow? Here comes f4. White has a great position and 3 minutes up on the clock, right? This is bread and butter for people who are rated 2700. Knight back to b7, knight to d6, and around here, I believe Vidit had to just completely go for it. He had to play h4 because if his opponent played h5, he would just juggernaut it. Queen g4, h5 takes, and mate. Vidit decided to do it this way and try to play in the center, and he kind of got tangled on the king side a little bit. Like, his opponent was putting up good resistance, which sometimes gets the top players a little bit frustrated, gets anybody frustrated. So Vidit played queen h4 and then kept trying to push forward, And here he had to just play the very simple, not simple, but take here queen g5. And hit the pause button and say, I'm doing well, I'm gonna go here, and I'm gonna win. But instead of that, Vidit went for glory. He was like, I am not going to allow the knight forward. First, I'm gonna go g4, and then I'm gonna take. And the move g4 blunders, such a nasty counterpunch, but you need to find it with only 2 minutes on the clock, and the fact that you're playing such a good player, right? And now, g5, and all of a sudden, as you can see, Stockfish is saying black is better. Black was supposed to get stomped this game. That was the way this was trending. Black was just supposed to get pancaked. White was supposed to walk forward, do what 2700s do, and win the game. And Razvan Priotu said, not today, brother. You ain't bullying no 2470 with your 2720 FIDE. I don't care. Let's go g5. When this opens up, Vidit takes the pawn, and hello. Whose king is actually weak? Whose king is actually weak, bozo? Yeah, do something. Queen f3. Do you know what queen f3 threatens? Queen f3 threatens, you might look at this and go, oh, the rook. Yes. Also mate. Also mate. Queen f1 is literally checkmate. So Vidit comes back, but rook f4. Vidit is completely lost. He has no way to defend rook g4 and a devastating attack on his king. He thinks for a while, panics, and goes here. This move guards the second rank, but it relinquishes control of this rank. Razvan Priotu, the board 3 of Canada, just defeated India's board 1 and 2. I mean, the match is over. Like, the match is, it's over. When a board 3 beats the top 2 boards on the other team, the match is over, right? In a 4-on-4 format, 4-on-4, the board 3 beats one, I mean, the match is over. Or so you would think. Norway, sorry, I keep calling them Norway because Magnus is on the team. Canada was up 4 games, 6.5, 2.5. That was the match score, first to 8.5 wins. 6.5 to 2.5. Magnus was absolutely on fire. Like, this man, here's his game against Raunik Sidwani. He is playing with the black pieces. He plays a Taimanov Sicilian. All right, Magnus was just doing Magnus things. Bishop c5. All right, nice and solid position from the opening. Everything is good. And now Magnus comes forward. Uh-oh. So you got to defend this. And Raunik is like, you know what? You know what? I'm going to stand up to Magnus. F4, here we go. Here we go, Magnus. Let's go. Let's throw some hands. Bah, throws the jab out, you know, rolls the shoulder and everything to protect against the counter. I learned a thing or two in boxing classes. Yeah, Magnus just goes queen b6 and wins on the spot. Dude, Raunik tried to throw one punch at Magnus, and Magnus said, boop. Do you know what this threatens? What does it threaten? It threatens queen b2, right? There is something even more nasty that it threatens. It threatens the fact that if you defend this, which, by the way, is basically impossible, knight e2 check. And you cannot take the knight because the queen pins everything, right? And if you move your king out of the way, of course, I'm just going to take on b2. So that's exactly what he did. He took on b2, and then he took on c2, and Raunik Sidwani resigned the game. Yep, that was the whole game. 20 moves. Done. I mean, Magnus was just beating everybody. 7 out of 7. He played 7 games in the Pro Chess League, and then he won all of them. Now, again, you're probably a little confused because you're like, where's the big game? Well, India was not to be denied. Here is Raunik Sidwani. Once again, this is the final round, and Raunik Sidwani against Aryan Sari started out as a very simple 4 knights game, which is the most boring opening in chess. It leads to a million different draws. And India, in this round, launched single-handedly the greatest comeback in chess history, as far as I'm concerned. That's probably gas. I'm probably gassing it up, as the kids say. Maybe just Pro Chess League history, but this was one of the most impressive comeback victories I've ever seen in my damn life. Raunik Sidwani, with the black pieces, proceeded to get a touch worse position, a slightly worse position, if you will, a little bit passive, and then he traded off pieces into a knight versus bishop situation and completely took over the game. He played queen h4, g5, launching a pawn in front of his king, dislodging the defense of this pawn, okay? And when Ariantari tried to infiltrate his position and beat things up, do you want to know what Raunak Sadhwani did? He locked the rook in a cage, and then he sacrificed his own rook, because if you take it, this rook dies a very sad death on d7. Look at that position. He's in a complete cage. That's crazy. The rook is in a box. Can't escape. Rook takes g4, and Raunak Sadhwani, up a full knight, traps the rook anyway, and goes on to win. Rook takes, there's this. And so, a lot of this match came down to this game right here. This is what you're here for. Magnus Carlsen versus Vidit Gujrathi. Would you like to know the head-to-head score of these two players in Rapid and Blitz? 14 wins for Magnus, 12 draws, 0 wins for Vidit. That, according to chessgames.com, is their head-to-head score. He has his number. He just has his number. Vidit has drawn a lot of games, but he hasn't broken through yet. Remember how I told you in the intro that there's a plot twist that you're not going to expect? It's coming. Pawn takes c5, takes bishop a7, knight bd2 castles, and this is our starting position that we will analyze. The pawn structure is completely symmetrical. All right? 6-6, no d and c pawns. White is a little bit better because white moves first. This bishop is blocked. White will probably finish developing first and maybe launch kind of the middle game plan. So what does Vidit do? Starts fighting back. Invites Magnus in for a cup of tea and just lets his knight live there on the d6 square. As Vidit is beginning to create his counterplay, he cannot take this because of discovered check. He plays things like knight d5. Magnus gets a death grip positionally on the c5 square, so he will be moving this. And when he does, the bishops will stare directly at Vidit's position, and most likely it will signal that the black king will perish. So Vidit plays bishop to e8 and h6. Magnus finishes his development, and now he has the perfect recipe to create an attack. He can create an attack with a move like g4. That is what the computer wants. That's not a very human move. So instead he does this and offers an exchange. The reason why Magnus is playing it this way is because he's trying to remove black's defending pieces before he goes on an attack. And also, let's not forget, Canada's winning the match. So, like, you don't need to put your foot on the gas just yet. You could just kind of seal the draw and win the match, right? As that's happening. Rook d8, rook c1, king f8. And the knight will now be arriving on c5 soon. Knight c3, okay. Knight f6, queen c2. Knight e4, knight d5, knight c5. All right. Knight has finally arrived. The queen is going to infiltrate to h7. The bishop is staring at that pawn. And it is going to be a 15th win for Magnus Carlsen. Magnus is going to win the game. He's done it for a 15th time. He just has Vidit's number. There is nothing that Vidit can do when he plays against Magnus. And he takes on c5. And it's checkmate in 3. Now, you must be feeling very, very perplexed, because while I do clickbait in my videos, I don't lie. I clickbait with absurd titles so that you click, but you still get a good piece of content. But am I lying? I said Magnus lost, right? But he has mate in 3. Well, he didn't find it. What? Magnus Carlsen has a checkmate in 3 moves in this position. He has 2 minutes on the clock to find it. And the second move of the sequence is this. Bishop takes g7 ends the game. The king takes, the queen checks, and either of these moves are met by queen h8. This mate. Crisscross, applesauce. But Magnus plays this first. It's unfathomable. It's an unfathomable miss. It almost never happens. You are officially no different than the greatest chess player of all time. You also would have not played bishop takes g7. He played here. He missed mate in 3. And the craziest part is he's still completely winning. Maybe around here he had realized he missed bishop g7, and that can really mess with you. That can really mess with you. I don't know, because I haven't spoken to the guy, but if you know that you just missed the mate, you go, oh my god, what have I done? That messes with you. Now, if Magnus just plays rook c5, he is still completely winning. He's still much better. Queen h8 check is what he played in the game, and then he did this, and he's still better, and he still has 2 minutes versus 40 seconds. But then, the most absurd turnaround started happening. It's +3, but he goes here, and then he tries to do this, and all of a sudden it's equal. It's equal. It's back to equality. This is insane. What is happening? Magnus had to not play e4. He had to keep his bishop open. The computer wanted some h4. And even here, it wanted him to find, this was the last moment that Magnus had a tactic. He had to find bishop f6. And the idea is queen h7 and this. And if you take with the king, there's queen f8 and bishop f7, like e5 and some huge attack. But bishop f6 is the last remaining tactic. Magnus does this and then sacrifices his knight and misses this. He misses the fact that g7 is protected. And if he plays g4, it's too slow. Boom, boom. And I'm getting out with knight g6, knight e5. This is unfathomable. This is unfathomable. Rook c5, knight back to f6. He doesn't have enough mating material. What? g5 takes, and the king runs back to f8, and queen f3, and Vidit is completely winning despite having 6 seconds on the clock. This is a turnaround for the ages. Folks, Vidit consolidates, moves forward, takes on a3, and Magnus just doesn't have enough pieces to create any sort of meaningful counterplay. He does his best, but it's over. Knight d4, hits the bishop, b2 is coming. Magnus resigns. Vidit beats Magnus for the first time in his career from a position where it was literally checkmate in 3 on the board. That is so crazy. And India, after trailing 6.5, 2.5, wins the next 7 games. India wins the match 9.5, 6.5. They were down 6.5, 2.5. They won 7 games in a row, and they won the match. How's that for a YouTube video? Now get out of here.